Hello and welcome back to phpvideotutorials.com. I hope you all enjoyed the first lesson. It seemed to go along pretty well with all the subscribers. So lesson number 2 here, we're going to talk about layouts, migrations and associations or relationships between our models. So this is going to be a pretty big lesson. But before I get started on that, I want to talk about something totally awesome that happened, or totally cool, or totally rad, or whatever. Something good that happened the other day. I'm sitting on the dunny, as we call it in Australia, which is disgusting, I know. All of a sudden I hear a knock at my door and I can hear a car running like a van, and I'm like, that's totally what it is. I know what it is. I know what it is. You know when you know something's getting delivered, you get excited. So I jumped off the dunny, ran to the door. Okay, I won't explain if I wiped or anything, but I had my pants up. I ran there. The dude's there. He totally hands me over the package. It's from Visibone. And yeah, so I got the Everything book, and it is the best book ever. If you are a web developer, or you have a friend who's a full-on web developer as well, get him this as a present. Honestly, go to visibone.com and buy this book. Alright? He sold like 55,000 of these suckers. He's a legend. This guy's made this book. It is great. It's a great reference. It's perfect, man. Especially if you're starting out as well. This would have come in so handy a few years ago for me, but it's still going to come in handy, no doubt. I'm going to keep it here, and it looks cool. It's a cool looking book. Yeah, so if you want, you can get that book. I think I might be doing maybe some competitions, or just giving away some prizes on the site now. We're starting to get a bit bigger, so we have a bit of cashy cash. We might be able to start to give away a few things, and I think this will be one of the first things I give away, because it's very cool. Alright, so we're going to move along. Next part, we'll be talking about layouts, and yeah, so we'll get into it. I'll see you guys there in about 2 seconds. Alrighty, so I'm going to introduce you now to layouts. Alright, they're part of the view, because when we talk about interface with Cake, and we talk about anything we're seeing, you know, the end result of the controller talking to the model, and putting that on our screens, no matter what format it's in, HTML, PDF, XML, whatever, it's part of the view. So layout is part of the view, and we're going to introduce you to him right now. So let's open him up with the Windows Photo Gallery, and I'll just move this in here. And you can see, okay, layouts. You can see that it's basically it's the background. Alright, so you got your view template, which we looked at in the last lesson, and the layout sits around it. Alright, so it says, hi, I'm a layout, background. I'm the presentation code that wraps around the view template, as you can see here. I'm still part of the view, so I'm not very smart. Okay, so he's not smart, he's still part of the view in the MVC, okay, design pattern or idea. The controller usually picks me to display his models in. So the controller is where we set the background, okay, for our view templates. Alright, so we can put our models on any background. We might have different layouts for different parts of our websites. So my name by default is default CTP, but your views can have as many layouts as you need. Example, admin template, okay, about template, contact template. Alright, so we can have different backgrounds, okay, that will look different for different parts of our site or application. Layout files should be placed in the app views layouts directory. Alright, so we can go there now and just check that out. So let's go into our project, open up your editor, and I'll just bring him into screen. So if we look in our views directory, layouts, okay, you can even see how layout is part of view because it's inside the view directory. And you can see here, its name by default is default. So this is the default layout or background for our application right now. Alright, you can see it all there. So it's just HTML mixed with some a few helpers, and you know, a little bit of PHP code here and there, which you'll understand by the end of this course full on. So that's basically it. You can see here that it's got another variable that I just want to make a point of, is the content for layout. And that's where our view templates sit. So if we open up our browser and go to our application, let's have a look-see in here. What's it called? Cake CMS, this one. And we go to posts. And we can see, so all this part here is the layout, okay, the background, okay. Alright, so we've got our background down here as well. But inside here, we've got our view template. And all that stuff comes in through that variable. So if we go back to our code here inside our layout, that's where that stuff is sitting. If you were to open up the source, you would see it's between the content div tag. Alright, now because you haven't been formally introduced to the view templates, alright, I'm going to introduce you to them now. So the view template, okay, if we come back into here and we just flick across, we'll have to find it somewhere here. There we go. View template. So in your study guides you'll find a file called view templates, and you can see that the view template is that part that was missing in the layout. Okay, so we can see that there. Alright, so I get to travel to beautiful locations and shoot in front of some amazing layouts, backgrounds. Okay, the controller usually chooses. Alright, because you can choose your layouts a different way using the routing, but we'll look at all this stuff later on. But yeah, so so that's what a view template is. You already know what that is because we looked at it in the last lesson. This is a view template here. If I go to index, alright, all this code here, okay, ends up coming into this part here, content for layout, and you can see it all here. So very, very simple. So that's what a view template is in the most basic form. And you know that the view templates are named after their, or put into a directory after their controllers. So we're accessing the index view template of the posts controller, and we can see that inside here by looking at the directory called posts, which represents our controller, and of course our index file. So very, very simple. I don't want to confuse you. Just make sure that when we're talking about the view, I'm also talking about layouts, view templates, and I'm even talking about another thing called helpers, alright, which we haven't looked at yet. But those three things make up our view. Now there are other things, like we can have themes, and we can allow file downloads using a special media layout that's available in Cake as well. But that is the basis. Layouts, view templates, and helpers make up the view part, the V in MVC. Okay? Remember that. Alright, next lesson, or next part of this lesson will be the schema tool and migration. So I'll see you guys there. Alright, now it's time to look at the schema tool, which is an awesome tool. And there's not much documentation on how to use this sucker just yet, but I'll show you how I use it. I'm not sure what the Cake people are going to think of how I use it, but this is how I rule with this tool. And to represent the schema tool, I see it as a scalpel. Alright, it's nice and sharp, it works on models, that's what plastic surgeons use. It makes sense. And it's another tool, so we use it from the command line, or the Cake console. So let's introduce you to the schema tool. Hi, I'm the schema tool. I'm used by qualified plastic surgeons. We're not qualified, we're going to mess things up big time, but it's going to be bloody. But if you don't mind blood, hang around with me, because I love blood. No, I don't love blood. Alright, so I'm used by qualified plastic surgeons. Migration instructions to perform procedures on models. He adds column, you can use it to add columns, altering columns, deleting columns, and it's mainly used for version control as well. Okay? Alright, so we have a few pictures here as well. I've just got this so you can try and remember. I've got a lady here going to get some boob implants. And then there's another lady who's going to get altered, her face altered. And there's another girl who's going to get her boobs deleted. Which is hilarious. Which is sad as well if she had something wrong with her, but maybe she's just going there and she's like, I'm sick of these things. I'm over it. Cut them off. And I get to keep them. I'm going to keep them on my wall. And yeah. Alright, so we've got version control as well. So you can keep track of the changes we're doing. Alright, so now let's get in some practice so we can become fully qualified plastic surgeons and use this tool in our models like professionals. But to start off with, we'll just do some basic stuff. So let's minimize him down and let's jump into the command line again and let's seed into our project. So seed into C, WAMP, www, Cake CMS, and we want to run, okay, we're going to run a tool here. We want to run the Cake console, Cake. We want to run the schema tool, and we want to generate a schema file. So we run Cake schema generate, and that's going to generate a file. Okay, so that just generated the schema file. All right, and we can find these files. We go into our project under config SQL. So it just created this file here, and if you look at it, it's got a property and a few before and after filters, which can be used to add in records after you've created your database schema if you want to, or what have you. But we're not going to be looking at these things just now. So you can see in here that it's got a posts property, which basically represents the posts table. If you look at that, it's the same as the table we created in the last lesson. And it's just a way of keeping track of your database changes, and it'll also allow you, if you're working in teams and you're using a code repository, you could commit this to the repository. When your friends check out the code, they could grab this schema file and run this file, and they'll get all the changes to their database that need to be changed for that project. So it's a handy way and an easy way to distribute your database with Cake projects. Alright, so let's now make a change to our posts table. So to do that, of course, we just use SQL to begin with. So we just say mysql -user -password, throw in the password, and we just want to use Cake CMS, and we just want to alter table posts. We'll say add column, we'll say published, we'll make it an integer, and we'll say it's not null. And we'll throw that on. So we just affected that table. So if we were to describe posts, we will see that now it's got a published column. Alright, now we want to reflect that in our schema tool. So when we share our project with other people, they'll be able to generate the database themselves. So to do that, all we do is we fire up the schema tool here. There goes my phone. Alright, so to update the schema file, very, very easy. All we need to do is run the generate command again, and it will do it for us. So we just use the schema tool or the scalpel, and we just run generate, and we just hit enter. And it's going to give us a different option this time. It's going to say to us, because we've already created the schema.php file, it knows it's already there. Do we want to override it, create a snapshot, or quit? Now we want to override it because we're just doing a little change to our database table, and we'll just say override. So we'll just go O, and it just regenerated that. So if we open up our schema tool again, your editor will probably tell you to reload it, and it will say published, and you can see that now we've got the column there. It's been added to our table, which is awesome. So we could even make a change to that table. So if we fire up MySQL, we can do a change to that. So we can say alter table posts, and we could say change published to published. We can say date and time, and we'll say not null. We can hit enter, and now we've just updated that column. So if we do a describe posts, you can see that now it's a date and time column, and then we can just reflect that update again. We can just regenerate our Cake schema. So Cake schema generate, we hit enter again, and it's going to tell us what do we want to do. We just want to override it. We override it, we come back in here, and we say yes, and there it is, it's been overridden. So we could alter that table and drop that column off and then regenerate our schema file, whatever we want to do. But the good thing is we can always regenerate our database if we have to. If we're on another machine and we check out our code, and we can just regenerate that database. And we'll talk more about checking out code and code repositories in the next lesson, but in the next course, sorry. But for now, the schema tool is very handy even working on your own. And that's the basics of the schema tool, just generating that file and stuff like that. We can, even if we want to, we can completely rebuild the database. If you look at the conventions, we've been running this command here to generate that schema PHP file, cake schema generate. But if I just zoom in a little bit here, you can see that we can also rebuild the entire database, the cake schema run create. So if we were to accidentally say drop our table, so let's just drop our posts. I should say drop table posts. Okay, so now if we go show tables, we should have zilchy there, so we've got nothing there. But if we want to regenerate all that stuff again, all we have to do is run that command. So if we come in here, we look down here, how do we rebuild our database? We just say cake schema, and we say create. We hit enter. Oops. Better say run create. And type that in correctly. There we go, and it's going to say, do you want the tables will be dropped? We just say yes, because even though we just dropped that table, it's going to redo it again, and it's going to recreate that table, so we say yes. So that table's been recreated now, just from running that rebuild one there. We can even SQL dump it to a file, so cake schema dump, the file name we want to call it, so we've got an SQL file there. And we're going to look at migrations next, where we'll look at snapshots and how we can roll back changes to our database very easily using the schema tool. Because now we are pretty much qualified plastic surgeons. We just have to practice the migration part, and then we should be cool. So I'll see you in the next bit. We're going to do some migrations. Alright, welcome back everyone. Time to talk about migrations. And to represent a migration, I'm going to use Dr. Ray from Dr. 90210. He's the greatest plastic surgeon in the world. Alright, so, hi, I'm a migration. My job is to perform procedures on models. I usually use the scalpel tool or the schema tool to do this. See how I called it scalpel by mistake? But that's because I see it as a scalpel in my head. But if we look down here, it says he usually uses the schema tool, alright? But if we look down here, Joel Moss has created an alternative tool, alright, that lets you manage your database schemas without touching one line or one little bit of SQL. So Joel Moss has done an alternative way to work with our tables and things like that, which is cool. It's a great thing. So I've got a little link there if you want to check it out. And good on Joel for doing that. Alright, so his procedures include adding columns, altering columns, deleting columns, and version control. So you can see that basically this guy's a whiz using the schema tool. Alright, he's got it down pat. No matter what procedures you've had done, I can always revert them back to your previous look. So it doesn't matter if we hack up your face, we could fix it for you. If you're a model and you need some work on your rows and columns, you know who to contact. We contact Dr. Ray, who is a migration. Alright, so let's run some migrations on our database table. To do that, first off, I like to, before I do anything, I like to make a backup copy of what I've got. So we'll do that now. We'll jump in here into our command prompt, and we'll just run cake schema, and we'll say generate. And this time we're going to put in a name option, alright, and we're just going to call this one backup, and I'm just going to call it Jan 23rd, because that's the date today, Jan 23rd. I'm just going to hit enter, and it just created a backup copy of that. So if we go into our file here, we'll see that if we open up backup Jan 23rd, it's the same as what we began with. So just so we can always go back to the very beginning of what we were doing before we started doing our migration. So usually you use a migration when you think of a new feature you want to add into your application. So you create a backup of what you've got, and then you'll begin to do the migration. So the first thing to do a migration, if we look at here, come in here into our MySQL, and we'll just say source, and we'll get the location. So in lesson files, we just want to grab the SQL here, properties or statuses. Copy all that, copy, close, and it's not the changes that are important right now. Alright, so don't worry too much about the changes right now. It's all about the migrations. So we just hit SQL, and that just did a few changes to our database table. So we'll just say show tables. Oops, show tables. And you can see that just created a new table. It also altered the post table and added in a new column. But that doesn't really matter that much. We just want to update our schema right now. But we want to, instead of overriding it this time, we want to create an increment on it so we can roll backwards and forwards. So how we do that is we just run cake schema, and we just say generate. But this time when we say generate, okay, it's going to give us an option here. We say snapshot. So we say S. We create a snapshot. So we just created schema 2. So we go in here, we now have schema 2 available to us. And you can see that it doesn't have our other table that we created. And that's because we don't have the statuses model created. Alright? Because one of the rules, if you look back on our schema tool, you can see here, note, the schema tool will only process tables for which there are models defined, although this can be forced by adding the force option. So we can force that by adding the -F. So what we'll do now is we'll just delete this schema file out. So we'll delete schema 2, like this, delete, yes, and we'll come back in here and we'll run that schema command again, but this time we'll put on the -F. We'll run force and we'll say snapshot, and then we'll check 2 there now. You'll see that now it's created that. So now we have that table created in our schema, which is totally awesome. And now what I want to do is I want to create one more migration. So I want to go ahead one more time and do it. So what we'll do is we'll go into our lesson code directory and we'll just grab out the location to this, properties, and we'll just copy that, copy. It's called tags, so we'll go into our MySQL and we'll say source, paste that in, /tags.sql. Alright, so that just made some more changes. So if we say show tables, you'll see that it did all those changes there. So now what I want to do is I just want to generate our migration again. So I'm just going to go in here and say generate, and I'm going to force it. Okay, hit force, and we're going to do a snapshot. Alright, so I just created the schema 3. So if we go into our file now, we've done another migration, we've gone forward again, we've changed our database to that. Now before I go any further, because I already have all this schema created and it's got all my tables in there, we need to create the models for these tables before we go any further. So let's create those now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run cake bake model. So we're running the Easy Bake Oven now, the bake tool. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to already know, it's going to look for our database and find the tables that we've created. So let's just start at number 2 and work our way down. So we'll say 2. We don't want any validation criteria. We'll define the associations now. Post tag belongs to post, yes. Post tag belongs to tag, yes. No, we don't want any additional stuff. That looks okay to us. Yes, we'll create it. And then we do bake model again, and we'll bake the status. So we'll say 3. Validation criteria, no. Associations, yes. Status has many posts, yes. Has 1 post, no. Additional, no. Looks okay to us, yes. Yes, we'll create the test files. We'll create the last model, which is tag, and don't worry about these associations just yet. We're going to look at those in the next part of this lesson. With 4, we want to create validation criteria, no. Yes, we want to do that. Tag has and belongs to many posts, we say yes. Additional associations, we'll say no. Looks good to us, we'll say yes. We'll create the test files. Alright, so now we should have some models, so you should have all those models for your tables in here. And now we're right to work with some stuff. So in the next bit I'm going to show you how we can roll back and forward. Alright, guys, let's do this. So now we want to roll back and forth between our schema files. Alright, so this is the version control part of using the schema tool. So to do this, all we do is we can open up our MySQL command line to just have a look at our tables. We've got a post table, a posts and tags table, a statuses table, and a tags table. but we want to roll back to the changes where we only had a posts table and a statuses table. So to do that, all we do is fire up the schema tool. So we run cake schema, and this time we're going to run create. All right, and we're going to run the snapshot, and we're going to run snapshot 3. All right, so it's going to tell us here, it's going to say, what do you want to do? The following tables will be dropped. So it's going to drop all our tables. Are we sure we want to drop all of our tables? And we say yes. All right. Then it's going to say, do we want to create all these tables? And we say no, because we don't want to create the post tags table and a tags table. So we say no, and then we go back again. So that's done that command. If we look at our tables now, if we say show tables, we're not going to have any tables just yet. All right, so it's empty. But if we come back here and we come up here and run the generate schema 2, all right, so we're going to run those commands where we created the statuses table. We just say, are you sure you want to drop those tables? We don't need to because we don't have any tables to drop. Are you sure you want to create those tables? We say yes. So now if we go back to MySQL and do a show tables, we're back to schema 2. All right. So to roll forward again, we can easily do that. All we do is we can come in here and run snapshot 3. So we just come in here and we just want to run this schema file. So we run that, create, and it's going to drop those tables. Do we want to drop all those tables? We can just say yes. You sure you want to create all those tables? We can say yes. So now we're back to where we want to be with all our tables. So we say show tables, and we've got all our tables, and we're running on schema 3. Alright, so sometimes you're doing updates to your table, you're altering column names, you're dropping columns from your database tables, and this is where I find it easier to actually use the schema file to do the change first. How we've been going MySQL, then generate schema file first. Now I'm going to generate a schema file, remove a column, and then run an update. Alright, so check this out. So what we can do is we can come in here and we can generate a new schema file. So we'll say cake schema generate, and we want to create a snapshot, and we just created schema number 4 there. If we come into number 4, just say we want to remove that publish date. Alright, so let's just remove published and hit save. Now we can run another command. Instead of running the run create, we can run the run update. So we'll come back here and we'll say cake schema run update dash snapshot 4, and see how I'm running update instead of create. So it's not going to delete all our tables or anything, it's just going to run an update on them. So we'll hit 4, and then now it knows the following statements will run: alter table, post, drop, published, because it knows we removed it. Are we sure we want to do that? We say yes, and it just updated our database. So that's another handy way to do updates on your tables, especially handy for removing columns and changing column types and things like that, things you do for updates. Alright, so let's roll back to schema 3 now. So we'll just jump in command line, and we just want to do an update back to schema 3, and it's going to add the publish date, and we'll say yes, and we're back to where we want, and we'll just delete schema 4 out for now. Alright, so now we're happy with our database schema. Let's just update the main schema file that we would commit to a code repository so our friends can use it to run the update command on their tables to get all those changes. So let's do that now. All we do is jump in again, and we just want to generate schema this time, and we want to overwrite because we want to overwrite the main schema file, and we just overrid it and we hit yes, and we'll just take a look at it now. So we'll close all this stuff up, and you can see it's all there. Alright, so that all looks pretty good. Well done. What we want to do now is I just want to show you one more thing, how we can roll back to where this all began. We created a backup migration or schema file there, so we can easily roll back. All we do is we would run cake schema run create, and we would hit enter, and we would remove those tables. We'd say yes, And are you sure you want to create tables? Would say no. And then what we'd do is we'd run cake schema run create, and we'd use the dash name instead of the dash s, and we'd put in the name of our backup file, which is backup underscore 23 Jan 23. We hit enter, and it's going to drop those. We can just say no, and it's going to create that. So now we're back to where we began. If I say show tables, and we could then regenerate the schema file if we weren't happy with our changes, and we'd be back to where we began. But I'm happy with those changes, so let's go back here and say run create. We're just going to run the main schema file here. We're not going to put any snapshots on there, and we'll say yes, and we'll say yes. So I'll just touch on a few other little things. You may have noticed that I named that schema file, so we could have easily named our migrations, alright, ourselves. So we could have named this file, you know, add statuses table underscore add status ID. So we'd kind of know what that schema file did, instead of just using the default names. But most times you'll get away with just running the schema and just taking a look inside of what you've done. But that's basically migrations in Cake. Now you guys will get a lot better, and so will I, at them as we go through this course. So it's going to be an interesting time, but that's how I see them in my head. So we'll move on to the next part, which will be association. So that's going to be exciting, and I'll see you guys there. It's been a big lesson. I know your head's probably hurting, but we've got to push, and we've got to get to the last bit, and then we can all take a break. Alright, I'll see you guys there. Alright, so now it's time to talk about something that's a little bit easier on the brain ski. We're going to talk about models and their relationships they have with each other, which is only natural. Models like to get it on, you know what I'm talking about? But if we look at the study guide for associations, if we have a look here, we can see that, hi, I'm an association. I'm a type of relationship models are having with each other. Models are into all sorts of relationships. Most times I'm the relationship between models made from table data, but as we all know, models can be made from different data sources. You can find out more about me by opening a model and looking at its association properties. Alright, so we can do that right now. Let's just jump in here and just open up your post model. You can see that right now the post model has no association properties. The only properties in here is the name property. So we want to regenerate our model because we created all those tables and all these models after we created our post model. We need to regenerate this model, which is easy to do. All we do is pop in here, cake bake model. So we're just going to use the easy bake oven tool, bake number 1. We don't want to apply any validation criteria. We want to define our associations, yes. And it says post belongs to status, we say yes. Post has and belongs to many tag, we say yes. Would you like to define some additional model associations? We say no. Looks good to us, we say yes. Override existing file, we say yes. We'll create the test files, yes. Override it, yes. Alright. So it's going to reload, and all of a sudden, bang, we've got all this stuff in here. So we've got a belongs to association, okay, to status, okay, to our statuses table, because we've got a foreign key in our post table called status underscore ID. And if we scroll down here, we can see we have a has and belongs to many, okay, association to a tag. Alright, so joins through our join table, which is post tag, and the foreign key, of course, is post ID for this. So if we were going back onto tag, the ID would be tag ID. Alright, so that's the join table in between. Here's our posts and tags. Alright, so you can look at the table structure, just doing a describe on the tables and looking over those for yourselves. You guys understand that because this is an intermediate course, or else I wouldn't be doing it this quick. But you can see here, so the associations Cake understands are has one. So I've done an example of, you know, you have one watch, a model has one watch. This model has many looks, or Zoolander has many looks, or that could be a lie, because if you watch that video down there, all these looks are exactly the same, which is hilarious. But they're all named different things, which is funny. And he belongs to his manager. Alright, models are not very clever, they need their manager to help them. And he also has and belongs to many women. Okay, he's with the ladies, and he also belongs to them, and they belong to him. So that's kind of like that a tag association we were looking at before. See how it has and belongs to many? It's just yeah, when you're thinking about relationships and you're trying to define them between your models, think of real world stuff, man. Think of real world stuff. So make it easy on yourself. You know, don't always think in table terms, like in your database tables. Think more about it in real terms, because everything is really real if you think about it. It's not all code. So yeah, that's just a little tip there for when you're putting all this stuff together. Yeah. See, it even says here, defining relations between different objects in your application should be a natural process. Okay, example, a recipe database. A recipe may have many reviews. Reviews may have a single author, and authors may have many recipes. So it's easy to verbalize it out, and then you just got to create the tables with the right column names, and Cake's conventions will take care of the rest, which we'll look at later on when we get into the coding part of this course. So that's all cool. So let's just go to our application right now, and we'll just do a refresh here, and we'll say new post, all right, like that. And right now we don't have everything that we should have. We should have some more drop downs here for our tags and our status. So let's just regenerate the views right now. So we'll just come in here and we'll say bake view, and we want to bake the views for the posts, and we'll say yes, we've already created all that. Do you want to create admin routing views for admin routing? We'll say yes. Override existing, yes, 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 yes. All right, so scaffolding, it's all redone again, these view files. So if we do a refresh now, we should get a few other things. See how we got all this stuff now? We've got our status, and we've got our published, and all that stuff, all those things that we added into our tables, which is really, really cool. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to re-update our posts controller, because remember, our controller will interact with our models and pass that data onto our views. And if we look at our controller right now, in our controllers, post controller, you'll see that when we're on the edit and everything like that, it doesn't actually pull out our tags for displaying in our drop down list there, because we need to pull out that model data. So let's regenerate our controller just quickly. Alright, so let's come in here and generate bake controller. We want to rebake our post controller. Overwrite post controller, yes. Would you like to use scaffolding? No. Would you like to include basic methods? Yes. Would you like to? Yes. Would you like the controller use other helpers besides that? We'll say no for now. No, we don't need any components. Would you like to use sessions? We'll say no for now, and we'll say yes. We'll override all this stuff. Alright, so now if we do a refresh, alright, you'll see now that it's got a bit bigger now, and you'll see that it's pulling out our tags now, and it's going to pass those onto our views as well as our statuses for our drop downs. Do a refresh here. I'm not going to get any changes here just yet, but yeah, so that is pretty cool. We're moving along very nicely in this course. Next lesson's going to be pretty full on, but before you do that, I want you guys to go into the study guides and study each of the guides and memorize the blue parts, alright, for now. And I also want you to read all of these pages, alright, which just go directly to the Cake manual. And after you've done those, you'll be right to go on to the next lesson, where we're going to look at validation, we're going to look at helpers, we'll probably look at elements and a few other goodies. So it's going to be a good lesson, and I'll see you there. Thanks again for your company. Rock on. I don't really want to answer this, but I'll answer it anyway. Hello, Lee speaking. Good, thanks. Who's this? Luke, how are you, dude? What is going on? You where? Are you coming over now? I'm recording right now. Alright, will you come over in like about... It would only take me half an hour, an hour? You can pop in now. You can hang around while I record. I don't care. Oh, that's cool. All right, brother. All right, see you, mate. Cheers. Bye. That was my brother. He did a weird voice on the phone, so I didn't know who it was. He's coming over now.